Everybody, welcome back to the Quiet Time Podcast with Bennie Fowler. I have a special guest right here, Cory Sandhagen, a UFC fighter. My man, what is going on?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm good, man. I really appreciate you being on today. You know, on the Quiet Time Podcast, we talk a lot about mindset. You know, we talk with entrepreneurs. We talk with now MMA fighters. We talk with, different types of athletes and CEOs. And we talk about mindset. So, and basically how you got started. What led you to doing MMA?
When I get asked that, man, I don't really have it too exciting of an answer. I actually grew up playing basketball. Basketball was like my sport growing up, and did that all throughout high school, and didn't play in college because I got a little burnt out. So I signed up at a really good MMA gym here in Aurora, Colorado, and then was naturally pretty good at it, and then just kind of ran with it, and now I'm doing really well. But mindset and stuff is definitely one of those big things that is huge for me in my life. It's something that I've spent a lot of time thinking about and reading on and all of that jazz. So, man, I'm really excited to talk about it.
Yeah, I see a lot of your posts. When I see your posts, it is a lot of, you have like a lot of positive thinking, and you're a very forward thinker. Where did that come from?
I think it started, I had what I would, I guess, call like I guess for lack of like a better word, because I don't have any word that's less cheesy, but more of an awakening, when I lost my first fight as a professional, maybe I think it was probably 5 years ago or so now. And I started kind of, asking myself who I thought I was, because the loss really hurt, because I was so identified with being a fighter and winning and all of that. And when I lost, it kind of shook up my world a little bit. It made me have to question who I was and what I wasn't. And I would say that that's kind of where that whole kind of journey started. I spent a lot of time in the mountains trying to, figure stuff out, just being really quiet in my own mind. And that's kind of where it started. Reading books like The Power of Now was really big for me a few years ago too. And since then it's been a lot of like, if I can control my brain and I can control all of that, I really believe that like things in life just naturally fall in place, and you can kind of walk on your path very effortlessly if you're doing that.
Yeah, I really believe that. And it's very encouraging to hear you say, because sometimes as athletes, especially in the sports that you and I both play, it's always, oh, you got to be tough, or nothing can seem to bother you. And life is not really like that. And it's very encouraging to hear you say and talk about, you having that little bit of adversity early on in your career, and like, look at how you've grown as a person and as a fighter. And that journey is ultimately where we win at, really.
Yeah, sure. It's hard to stay focused on that. I'm sure we like to win, like that's why we are where we are. And it's because we like to win and we like to do really well. And focusing on that journey part is a harder part for me, but I always find that like when I'm doing that, everything else kind of just works out,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's just awesome to hear. And man, I really appreciate you having that mindset and just sharing that with our listeners. Just the fact that, it's always a constant journey. Even if, you win your next 12 fights, you still have to develop as a person every single day and get better.
Sure. And adversity happens. What'd you tear your labrum or something in your arm?
Labrum and rotator cuff.
How's that going?
It's different, but there's always blessings in disguise when you have injuries like this, and being able to have you on this podcast, and I'm just looking at all the positive possibilities with it. Like, it is what it is. So how am I going to handle it? I can't just sit around and not do anything. So why not get back on my podcast? Why not surround myself with positive people to help push me through a time like this?
Sure. Is this your first big injury?
In the NFL, yeah. Like, when I'm out like 6, the recovery is 6 to 9 months. I'm gonna make it 6, but yeah, this is the first time where I'm like, missing majority of the season, and there's so much left to do, and you feel like you're just getting off to to a good start. Drew's starting to trust me, and then this happens. But I never question the man above, and I never question what happens. I think great things are going to come out of this.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Nice. Yeah, I mean, I've never had like any crazy huge injuries like that, but I always, I'm always like, man, I hope that I take that well, because 6 to 9 months off, that would be heartbreaking a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. But now it puts me in a position like, all right, what does life after football look like? Now that, I'm not saying I'm giving up on football by any means, but like, all right, this is the first time in my life where, okay, 6 to 9 months, what do I want my everyday life to look like? How am I going to move forward? Who do I want to be as a person? Because right now I'm not Bennie, the NFL player. I'm Bennie, the NFL rehab player, but who is Bennie Fowler, the business now?
Yeah, cool. That's very nice. Yeah.
So with that, going back to mindset, obviously you have to have a strong mind when you're fighting another person. So what is it like before a match?
Yeah.
Like leading up to it. Yeah, like leading up to it. Like just take us through like leading up to it, a couple months before, the month before, the night before. What is that like?
Sure. So I'll just kind of break it down. It might take me a second, but I'll just kind of give you guys an idea of like what it kind of looks like to get prepared for a fight, and what fight week looks like and all of that stuff. But usually we start about like 9 to 12 weeks out. I know some guys do like a little bit longer camps where they'll start 12 weeks out. That's a little too long for me. My body gets a little bit too beat up if I do too long. So I usually do 9-week camps, at least 2 times a day, usually 3 times a day, or 3 days, or 3 times a day, 3 days a week. And then the other 3 days is only 2 times a day. And usually one of those is pretty tough, as far as like on your body tough, and you do that for 9 weeks, and then you have you're losing weight. So I walk around at like a little bit more than 155 pounds, and then I'll cut down to about 148 a week before the fight, and then cut the rest of the 13 pounds the week of the fight, which sucks, not terrible. Other guys have really terrible weight cuts. Like other guys have like, they'll walk into fight week 1 week before like 20 pounds heavy. And I don't know how they can even sleep with the amount of stress that must be going on in their minds, just knowing that they have to cut that much weight. To me is insane, but I don't cut that much. So 13 pounds is where I chop it off. And then, fight week is just boring. You kind of just sit around, you let your body taper. You just make sure that you're losing the weight in a good way. Usually I have to sweat off like 6-7 pounds the day of. And then afterwards we put on all the weight. Usually like I'll usually walk into the cage probably around 151, 152 the next day. And then you fight. So as far as like mindset goes, obviously those 9 weeks are, the first 2 weeks aren't bad, and then you get a little beat up, and then those last 7 weeks are kind of like, I don't want to say I'm over them, because I don't like to let that little monster get into my head. But, sometimes I'm dragging a little bit to practice and stuff. But like I said, I try not to let those little monsters into my head. And then, week of the fight, blah, 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 is kind of just grueling because you're losing weight. And then going into the fight, which is a little bit of something that I've had to reface a little bit, because I had a loss, my first loss in the UFC, I think it was 4 months ago, to the number 3 guy. His name was Aljamain Sterling. And I lost in a really, in my eyes, pathetic way. It was like, I got choked out in like a minute and a half or something. And it was really pathetic, like not a performance that I wanted to have show who I am as a fighter. And when I went back and looked at that fight, because that's the second loss that I've had in my career as a professional. And so I went back, I looked at it, and I was just way too calm going into that fight. I realized that when you're going into something that's intense as a fist fight, because it really is the only sport where the only objective is to harm your opponent, which is a little bit different and requires like a different level of intensity. Since that loss, I've been doing like a bunch of reading on like how to get to level of intensity. A lot of books on like the art of war and strategies of war and things like that, and just to put my head in a space where it's like, man, like this isn't really like other things. Like this is it's the only game that you don't really play, and I can get seriously hurt. And when I got choked out, I realized that, and I was like, man, I don't ever want to have my family watch me get hurt like that again. And it kind of raised this like maturity to what I was doing. And yeah, so I worked on that. I was able to like kind of conjure up all of that intensity whenever I wanted to. And I was able to do it in my last fight. I fought the number one contender named Marlon Moraes. I fought him and knocked him out in the second round. And that was the most locked in I feel like I've ever been in any type of competitive scenario ever, where I did a lot of mental preparation as far as like getting myself to be really intense. And I was able to do that right before the fight. And I really attribute like that headspace that I was in, that lack of distractions that I was able to like put on myself, the reason that I did really well. And now I'm in a really good spot. You know, I could be fighting for a title, and you know, maybe this next one, if my division has their title fight in December, and then I mean maybe after that, since I'm the number 2 guy, maybe I'll get one that title shot right afterwards. So that headspace though is everything, man. Like I lost to a guy that I think is not better than me, and then I fought a guy that I think was better than the last guy that I lost to, because I was able to put myself in a really solid headspace for fighting.
Yeah, that mindset is everything. By the way, I saw that fight. Congratulations on that.
Yeah, thanks, bro.
I mean, I just think that's awesome. And now that I get to actually understand, or somewhat understand, like how you prepare yourself, and like you said, UFC is not like anything else. Like you're trying to actually hurt somebody else, and it's funny to hear you say, or not funny to hear you say, but like just the awareness that you had to find, all right, I'm too calm. Now, you know, you find you have that self-awareness, and that brings you to even being more locked in that second fight. And you said, I mean, you were just in a great headspace, but I think it comes from that. I mean, just from what I'm hearing, just that self-awareness, and that self-awareness brought you to, all right, I'm back to the drawing table. Mindset's got to be different. It's got to be better. And you reap the benefits.
Yeah. I mean, you know, who helped me with that a lot is actually, I was watching, Kobe Bryant's interview with I think it was that guy Tim Grover. Is that the right guy?
Yeah, Tim Grover.
Yeah. So I was watching that interview, and Kobe was talking about some playoff series that he was not doing really well in, and he didn't bug out about it. He didn't get in his own head about, oh, maybe I'm not any good, blah blah blah. He was really honest with himself, and he just was like, I'm coming right out of high school. The games are longer in the NBA. I didn't have my legs underneath me. And he was like, so I was honest with myself. I found out what was wrong, and I fixed it. And I don't really think if you can't be honest with yourself, you can't do that. You know, like you can't figure out what the issue is if you're not willing to like face that, you know, and actually that interview with Kobe Bryant helped me a lot, because I was like, man, I don't need to feel like I suck just because I lost. Like I just need to figure out why it is that I lost, fix it, and then I won't have that issue again. That was actually one of the people that helped me a lot, kind of through that last fight, and just making sure that like you don't have to feel like you suck just because you lost. You know, you just got to fix your problem. That's it.
Yeah, I mean that's also encouraging to hear, because you know, Kobe was my favorite athlete of all time, you know, always will be, just because, I mean, it wasn't about the points he scored. It was about the approach that he took. And I didn't appreciate it when I was younger, but, you know, as I was getting older, and as he retired, you just appreciate that mindset, and you appreciate him attacking his fears. And there have been times in my career where I'm like, you know, trying to sugarcoat a performance, like, oh, it wasn't that bad, and not being completely honest with myself, like you just said. And once you're honest with yourself, you'll just feel better. Like, all right, that performance is not who I am, but it doesn't have to define me. I can get better at this. I've had plenty of opportunities and moments where I've proven this to myself.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. And I'm sure that you've experienced it too, where it's almost like, man, like you have people that want to make you feel better. You know,
Yeah.
they want to they want to make you feel better after. I mean, your games. If you have a bad game, they want to make an excuse for you and want to make you feel better. And it's like, I don't think that that's any good either, because in fighting it's really dramatic, and I'm sure it is in football too, where it's like, man, you play bad or you lose bad. It's like it's a really dramatic experience, and it's like you have a lot of people just trying to like put out that fire when it's like, nah, man, just be honest, be honest with yourself, and then you can fix your issues. And that's one of the things that I attribute a lot of my success to, is just, man, I'm just real with myself.
That it irks me when people try to pat me on the back for
Yeah.
a performance. Like, oh, bro, it's okay. No, it's not.
Yeah.
I hold myself to a higher standard. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
How's stuff with you though, man? I haven't seen you. I don't know if you remember, but I always used to see you in the morning at Resilience Code when we were doing our little MMA workouts, and you were there. And
yeah,
uh, where are you at now? You're in New York?
yeah. No, I'm back in
Yeah.
Denver. I'm back in
Oh,
Denver.
back in Denver. Cool.
Yeah, back in Denver. But everything is good, man. Just handling this injury right now. But yeah, no, I remember seeing you guys. I didn't know all you guys. Well, now
Yeah.
that I watch UFC more now. So now it's funny to see all you guys on TV. I'm like, man, I train with literally all of these guys. They're all in the same gym. But it's just, I mean, you guys are super competitive, and when I watch you guys' workouts, I mean, it's super intense. I mean, no one's ever joking around when you guys work out.
Yeah, those ones. Some of them are tough, man. Like that Wednesday, because we'll do our metabolic on Wednesday, and I only because I'm usually, and just I think the body type, I don't really stress too much about like conditioning and stuff. But dude, when I come back to that first Wednesday back in training camp, when I got to do metabolic day, I'm like, damn, I'm like, damn, I start getting anxiety before I even do the workout. But your guys has got to be pretty hard too, though, right? Like
Yeah,
you have.
it just depends on, like, usually when you see me at Resilience Code, we're like, I'm slowly in a ramp up period.
Mm,
It won't start getting crazy hard until about a month and a half, month before training camp, when the conditioning is more sports specific, and we're just fine tuning, getting ready for a long training camp. So Resilience Code, it's always a ramp up period when you see me, but it's always usually off season training. But when I'm watching you guys, it looks like you guys are always in full season mode right now.
well, you know what I want. You know what I've always kind of wanted to ask, like an NFL player is, how much emphasis is there on like on the actual? Obviously you guys have to be strong, you have to be fast and athletic and coordinated. How much emphasis is there on like being in really really good shape? Is that like something, or is it more on like the be powerful and be fast type of approach?
Oh no, you got to be in shape, just
Yeah.
because it's you only have 53 people on the roster. So,
Mm.
I mean, your starters are playing their 65, 70 plays a game, and then your backups have to be ready to play that many plays as well. So, it's not necessarily like, if we're in season, it's not all about being in shape. We're not doing a lot of conditioning. You're going to get your conditioning with the way we practice
Mm.
and the way we practice. And then if you're not getting that many reps in practice, it's on you to get that conditioning after practice to be ready.
Okay.
So that's just kind of how it is. Yeah.
So, because I always wonder this too, because I know, and it's not so much anymore, but I used to have this an anxiety about getting tired before a fight.
Yeah.
Do you think that that's something that you've had experience with, or that anyone that you know of has had experience where you're like, man, I do not want to get that tired for this?
Oh yeah. When I was playing out here
Yeah,
with the Broncos, just because of
yeah,
the altitude, you're just like, you already know it's going to be hard to breathe. And then you put yourself in this little bit of a panic because it's going to be hard to breathe.
yeah,
So, there are just different ways, as you from, I tell myself now, like, when I'm doing something hard or something like conditioning, my body's getting familiar. I'll always constantly tell myself my body's getting familiar with this. It'll continue to get familiar. So I try to take that stress and anxiety away. Like, you're going to get tired, but now I just focus on how quickly can I recover, and focusing on my breath helps me to be more mindful and just stay in the present. So I'm actually not that tired.
Nice. Cool.
Yeah, man. So, hey, Cory, I really appreciate you being on the Quiet Time podcast, man. Good luck going ahead in the future. I'm sure I'll see you around because we're both in Denver. But man, I really appreciate you being on.
Yeah, man. Thanks a lot for having me, dude. My pleasure. Really nice to talk to you.
Yes, sir. Much love.